Hey everyone, it's me. Welcome to my channel, and today we're going to look at Luke 24:44. So grab your Bibles, grab your notebooks, and let's dive in. Okay, so Luke 24:44 says, "He said to them, 'These are my words which you have heard. All things must be fulfilled which were written about me in the law of Moses, in the prophets, and in the Psalms.'" Now this passage comes from the resurrection appearances of Jesus after he rose from the dead. So it's a very important passage because it tells us what Jesus said to his disciples right after he rose from the dead. So who was this passage talking about? Well, notice in verse 34 it says that the disciples doubted because they did not see the Lord. But then Jesus showed himself to them and said, "Why are you troubled? Why do these doubts arise in your hearts? Look at my hands and feet, that it is I myself. Handle me and see. For a ghost does not have flesh and bones, as you see I have." In other words, Jesus said, don't doubt. Don't question that it is me risen from the dead. Look at my hands. Touch me. Feel me. Because ghosts don't have bodies. But I have a body now that is real, that is tangible. I am a historical person that you can interact with. And then he said, "Why are you troubled? Why does doubt arise in your heart? Listen. I have to tell you something very important, and that's what this passage is all about." Jesus told them, "I have to tell you something very important about who I am and why I came." So what did Jesus say? Let's read it. "These are my words which you have heard. All things must be fulfilled which were written about me in the law of Moses, in the prophets, and in the Psalms." So Jesus said everything that was written about him in the Old Testament had to be fulfilled. What do you think he meant by that? Let's break it down a little bit. First, let's look at the word things. The Greek word here means things, matters, or concerns. So Jesus said, all these matters and concerns, all these prophecies had to be fulfilled. Then he gave them an explanation. He said, which were written about me in the law of Moses, in the prophets, and in the Psalms. So Jesus said everything that was written about him in the Old Testament had to come true. And that's exactly what happened. Everything that was written in the Old Testament concerning Christ had to be fulfilled. Now let's get to the main point of this passage. Why would Jesus have to fulfill everything that was written about him in the Old Testament? Why did he have to be the Christ? Well, think about this. If Jesus is not God, why would he have to fulfill all of the law, prophets, and Psalms? Think about this. If someone wrote something about you in their book and it didn't come true, you wouldn't think that person is God, would you? But if everything that was written about Jesus in the Old Testament came true, shouldn't that point to the fact that Jesus is God? That's exactly what the disciples realized. That's why they worshipped him and they believed, because everything that was written in the Old Testament about the Messiah had to be fulfilled. And it all came to pass in Jesus. So I want to ask you, what do you think about this passage? What do you think about this truth that Jesus is God? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And if you've been blessed by this message, please share it with your friends and family. I will see you next time.